notice you are easily stressed, it could be because you lead a stressful lifestyle. According to the latest science, it could also be due to a very common mineral in the body that not only makes you more prone to stress, but it makes the stress even worse. So in this video, I'm going to explore the latest studies to shed light on this very bizarre relationship. The relationship between magnesium and stress was first noted in the 1950s by Hans Selye, a leading Hungarian scientist. Subsequent research built on Selye's work and a clear theory emerged. The theory became known as the bidirectional model. It suggested there is a two-way relationship between stress and magnesium. More research revealed some truly fascinating details and explained why certain people seem to spiral in stressful situations while others appear to be almost completely immune to all forms of stress. Before we dive into these bizarre discoveries, let's quickly remind ourselves about magnesium and what it does in the body. Magnesium is an essential mineral for humans, being the second most abundant mineral inside our cells. It is involved in almost all major processes in our body and acts as an important cog in hundreds of reactions. Its primary functions include building of protein, transmission of nerve signals, muscle function, and controlling of the heart rhythm. It is estimated that an adult human body contains around 21 to 28 grams of magnesium, 50 to 60% of which is stored in our bones, with the remainder distributed in soft tissue such as muscle. Magnesium is also one of the few minerals that can get through to the brain by leaking through the blood-brain barrier, although how it does this remains a mystery. To understand the weird relationship between magnesium and stress, you have to understand exactly how magnesium moves through the body at any one time. Under normal circumstances, most of our magnesium is stored in our bones, and the small amount that is floating around the body are inside our cells. Only a tiny percentage is floating free in our blood, or to be more precise, in the extracellular space. But this dynamic completely changes when we experience stress. Imagine you haven't slept for a few nights because your job is at risk and you worry about how you'll pay your next bill. In phases of stress, those first 2 or 3 days, studies have shown there is a spike in the levels of magnesium in the body. The question is, why? Well, scientists have known for a very long time that magnesium has a calming effect on the nervous system. As the levels of stress spike, the body releases more magnesium to combat this. More specifically, magnesium seems to promote the release of a chemical called GABA, which helps calm the nervous system. Some of you might be asking, how does the body know it's under stress? Well, when someone is stressed, unique chemicals and hormones are released which are in turn picked up by these special receptors. However, at some point, particularly if the stress is prolonged, the body will eventually run out of magnesium. Initially, there is enough magnesium stored in our cells and in bones, which can be diverted towards fighting the rise in stress. But eventually the body's supply will be exhausted and magnesium levels will start to dwindle. And of course, this means the effects of stress are free to run riot. This is the worst stage to be in because it becomes a vicious cycle where stress is out of control because magnesium levels are low, and magnesium levels remain low because they're being depleted by the stress. So how do you exit this vicious cycle? Before we answer this critical question, let's answer another critical question. Where is the evidence for all this? And we are talking about good quality human studies. A fascinating study done with emotionally stressed women in Russia showed a colossal 60% were deficient in magnesium. Other studies in the US found similar numbers. This is not all. There is another surprise twist to this weird relationship between magnesium and stress. It appears that prolonged stress together with low magnesium makes you more prone to something else, something far more serious. And that thing is depression. In fact, this link is so long-standing, experiments as far back as the 1920s showed success in using magnesium to manage depression. One study all the way back in 1921 showed successful treatment of depression in 220 out of 250 cases using just magnesium. And more recent studies suggest magnesium is just as effective as conventional drugs in treating depression. Now we need to ask an obvious question. How can we use all this information ourselves in our daily lives? Does supplementing with magnesium actually make you stress-proof? The good news is there is solid evidence taking magnesium supplements helps treat stress. One study looked at a group of stressed students due to sleep deprivation and poor nutrition. No surprise there, the life of a student in a nutshell, if you ask me. And the students were given 250 milligrams of magnesium per day for 4 weeks. Not only did their magnesium levels start to shoot up, but their cortisol levels, which is the main stress hormone, dropped dramatically. In another study, supplementing with 400 milligrams of magnesium a day resulted in lower heart rate in previously stressed individuals. There is another curious pattern all the studies I have covered so far noticed, and it is this. All the studies noticed people who were stressed usually had low magnesium levels, which is very interesting. But this opens another interesting question. One, did the stress cause the magnesium levels to go low, or were these people's magnesium low to begin with, and that made them more prone to stress? It is the classic chicken and egg situation, which came first. But putting stress to one side, why would someone be deficient in magnesium? Magnesium is found in many foods, so getting your daily levels of magnesium should be quite easy. Some of the foods that are rich in magnesium are nuts, legumes, whole cereals, fruits. All have very high magnesium content, followed very closely by coffee and chocolate. One good reason why some people might not be getting enough magnesium through their diet is the variation noticed when people studied how people get their magnesium in different countries. For example, one study in France in 2016 discovered that French people obtained more than 20% of their magnesium from just hot beverages, things like tea, coffee, 9% from bread, and 6% from vegetables. The same study looked at adults in America, in the US, and they discovered their main source of magnesium were vegetables, 13%, milk, 7%, and meat, 7%. In Italy, cereals made up 27% of people's magnesium intake. And the suspicion that some people are not getting enough magnesium is not just a suspicion, it's actually been proven by studies. Studies have consistently shown that the dietary magnesium intake is often inadequate across different countries. In 2005, scientists at the University of California reported that approximately 60% of Americans do not reach the recommended daily intake of magnesium through their diet. In the US, between 2003 and 2006, the average intake of magnesium from food was 260 milligrams for men and 234 milligrams for women, which meant that 63% of men and 69% of women did not meet the minimum magnesium intake requirements. So it seems most of us aren't getting enough magnesium in. But before you rush to the pharmacy and load up on magnesium, consider this. Too much magnesium can actually be worse than getting too little. Why is that? Well, let's look at the consequences of taking too much magnesium. The maximum allowed limit of magnesium supplementation in healthy adults, it's about 350 milligrams per day. Normally, the kidney gets rid of any excess magnesium up to a point. So what are the symptoms of magnesium toxicity? These include hypotension, which means dangerously low blood pressure, nausea, flushing of the face, retention of urine, lethargy, and this may progress in severe cases to difficulty in breathing, extreme hypotension, irregular heartbeat, and cardiac arrest. So be extremely careful to take magnesium only as advised by your healthcare provider.
I have a question for you. Do you take magnesium supplements, and has watching this video changed your mind about maybe starting to take magnesium supplements? Let me know in the comments below and I'll personally respond to you.